Hello, 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 and welcome back to Young Climber. We have returned yet again. It is another episode where we hope to inspire the youth of Eswatini through work being done by young people right here in the Kingdom of Eswatini. And in today's episode, we are joined by Chester's Mint Maphalala, who joins us as a content lead at Tertiary Hub News, and of course, acquiring a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication, among so many other things. He is also a fellow, so I'm very excited to be exploring his life and his professional journey, and of course, inspiring all the young ones at home. Mr. Maphalala, welcome to Young Climber.
Thank you very much, Tabelo. It's really a huge honor to be here.
Excited to be talking to you. I don't know how many fellows I've spoken to, but everyone has their own unique stories, and that is what I love about talking to a fellow. But firstly, growing up in the Kingdom of Eswatini, such a beautiful country. How was it for you, growing up? Where did you grow up? And what back then inspired you to get into the journey of media and storytelling?
Thank you for such a lovely question. I grew up in a tiny village community, Arandinda.
So never heard of it.
Yeah, it's a rural village there by Ndondozi,
okay.
And growing up from a polygamous family, there was just always so much happening around me. There were so many rich stories you were saying. Whether it's you and your siblings fighting,
it's gossip, basically.
Whether it's the parents, and their stuff. So there was just so many stories around that. And as children, we were still growing up at a time where things such as social media, smartphones were really limited. Phones, if I can say so.
Yeah.
Tinganekwane were part of the things that we were using to pass times. We were telling stories with our friends, with our siblings. That's the school that had stories. So I just fell in love with words, really, in that I discovered that words had just so much potential to change things. I mean, if you look at God, he had to speak words to create things. He was speaking. So I was intrigued about what words could do, which eventually made me find myself getting into writing, studying journalism as well at the University of Eswatini, and eventually starting up Tertiary Hub News for fellow young people in my country.
But we also need to backtrack, Nje. I know that you have mentioned that, you studied journalism and mass communication at the University of Eswatini, but we need to go back to what really inspired that decision, because I know you're saying, Kukula, many Maswati share a similar story of but that could never spark invoyekuti anghambe ngiyofunda journalism,
totally
even
agree.
the stories around them. For you, what prompted this decision? Was it a matter of Bangalile become, because that's the story that I get a lot. Now I need to go try somewhere else. What was it for you at that point? Because ka grade 1 funa bang total, ka grade 3 funa bang police, ka grade 5 so funa bang tishela. Why did you then reach this point of deciding with mine sengifuna kuphelela ka journalism?
I think for me, really, God had always had a plan for me that I was aware of, because most of the things that I was doing, I wasn't aware of why am I even doing these things in the first place. Some of the things were making sense as they are unfolding. I'm like, I'm actually starting a business here. When the people are now saying, we want to advertise, that is only when I get to discover that I'm actually onto something. I'm there creating WhatsApp groups for fun. So even if going back to school, I won't lie, the entire primary, I didn't know what I will become. I would just say anything each time getting into secondary, a similar story. But by the time I got into secondary, I was going to Mvimbeho High School in Ndondozi. So there I had the opportunity to start studying Boma IT. So I discovered that I enjoy using computers. I like computers, The thrill of using the computer was quite interesting, at which at that time I told myself, I think in the event I have to eventually decide, I can choose IT because I'll be working with computers.
Yes.
But then in terms of me knowing what I would be doing, I was just still in the dark, Get to before I get to Form 5, I had to transfer to same Christian High School in Maphalala.
Okay.
Where there I got to be exposed to technologies. We now have Wi-Fi, we now have so many access to computers and all that.
Yeah.
So I keep on doing these things. I'm not really sure where I'm going. I finish my school, I look at my results, my maths is not mathing, if I can say.
Yeah.
It's really not coming through, and I do have very good results in the other spaces, Maybe I can also mention that the parents initially had suggested that I study science subjects, physical science, chemistry,
And
biology, they always say, oh, I'm so smart, you can handle it, but the reality of it, I knew that I didn't enjoy being in that class. Since primary, I was looking at the results. I'm always doing well in English, I'm doing well in Eswatini, but when it comes to maths, I need to scrape a C. I need to, if I have a D, I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
So I just knew that I didn't belong into that space. So when the results eventually came after grade 12, I talked to people, including my sisters, who advised me that I did qualify for a course in humanities as a teacher, and I was fixated with ICT. I wanted to go back to school to redo my maths, and then I thought to myself, what if I pass the maths? Now I'm stuck with maths for the rest of my life at varsity. I don't want that.
You need to work hard.
I just don't want that. So I applied for humanities at UNESCO, and so we have like 3 options to decide when applying there. So I had selected humanities as the first option.
Okay.
Social science is the second option. I didn't have a third option.
Yeah.
The others I felt I didn't qualify. Journalism was not it. Who wants to work at a course?
Yeah.
That was the thinking at the time. So I go to submit the forms. They advise me that if the form is incomplete, it won't be processed. So you can just write journalism to fill in the form.
Yeah.
And hope they will take you humanities. I fill in journalism and they take me at journalism. And I'm like, journalism now. Excited about that. You are going to VAS, you can always transfer. We had to switch programs. And then my sister is like, just do 1 semester. If you don't like it, you will change.
Yeah.
And then I did it. I saw that now.
I'll stick
this
to
is
it.
what I'm going to do. And as soon as I started at THN, or rather Tertiary Hub, that was when I knew that my life was just people's stories for the rest of my life.
And you mentioned one important thing that I think we need to highlight or speak on, the idea of batali negusita in directing us in certain career paths. If you could say now, if you listen to your parents, maybe you would be far maybe in life, but maybe not so far. But for you, how did it help to also take charge of your own life and say, okay, this is what I'm passionate about and this is what I'm going to do? And also nje kulalela siswakho at that time kwaba mqoka for wena.
No, I totally agree with you. I think the biggest problem that parents, or should I say, we do as parents, is that we try to do things or take decisions believing that they are good for our kids, but yet in reality they are not motivated by that. They're just motivated by us, our own desires.
Yes.
Us,
Yes.
If I could really be literal on my parents, they would even say, I think we already have 3 teachers here.
Yeah.
We don't need another teacher.
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
And you're there thinking, but I really would love to do this. I convinced myself that teaching was okay as well. I would have the opportunity to beat children. So I was excited about that as well. But they were so fixated at having something different, a scientist, a doctor. And I knew that is not going to happen. I am not capable of doing that. But I knew that I enjoyed doing other things. So I would say it is important for us to eventually decide. At times it will feel like you're being rebellious. But if you know that's what's really good for you, they will thank you later in life.
But I think that also just highlights bumqoka betimvo lenjengabo career guidance yabona kuthi umuntu a research entweni lativa ngathi u passionate ngayo. But just continuing the conversation, during your varsity years, you also served as the vice president of the JMC Society. What did this period in your life teach you about leadership, and how did it help you in the sense of your direction and your confidence going on?
At the time, it's funny because I wasn't even aware I was a leader. I was there just
Just vice
just
presidency.
vibing to what was happening.
Yeah.
You know, it started with my fellow classmates electing me a class representative for them. You know,
Yeah.
and then from class rep, I saw them. Now it's no longer my classmates; it's the entire department, and they're now voting for me to become the president. If I can say, you
You're
know.
popular.
You are only becoming a vice president because you lost to someone else who becomes the president. That's how it used to work.
Okay.
So I end up becoming the vice president, and I'm there thinking, what are these people saying? You know, this
Yeah.
is me. I didn't even know Gutsi being a caretaker because I've never been a prefect at school. I've never been whatsoever. But seeing the change in how we interact with our lecturers really changed how I think, or rather how I saw life at that time. You know, you are used to seeing this lecturer very serious in front of you. You are always hiding from them because they are lecturers. They are not supposed to see you like that or doing whatsoever you are doing.
Yeah.
But right now you have a lecturer calling you, you know, saying, Chester, we need to fix this. You just start feeling important all of a sudden, you know. So it really, really helped me in terms of shaping how I behave in terms of the workplace, in terms of leadership. As I think also for a lecturer, I mean, people with PhDs, people with masters, to come down to the level of a student and talk to them, email them, work with them, you know, because we're doing reports, we're doing organizing events, Press Freedom Day. So doing all those with these high value individuals really, really inspired me. So I'll say it was such an important time in my life.
It's also safe to say at that time you also became a high value individual yourself. But now you're a content lead at Tertiary Hub News. Can we talk about the mission of, you know, the Tertiary Hub News, what it is and what it does, you know, when it comes to content strategy and the content space?
No, thank you for that question. You know, Tertiary Hub News really was established from a place of pain, but at the same time seeing an opportunity. You know, I've always known, I don't know how, others will feel like this guy is now becoming too much of himself, but that's okay. But I've always known that I was called for something bigger, you know, something in me. Even today is always saying that I'm meant for something bigger wherever I am.
Okay.
I'm always looking for something bigger than where I am, you know. It has always been like that. And looking at the media space in Eswatini, I mean, if you check back maybe say 4 or 5 years, you know, a lot has happened in terms of its development, which we really appreciate. But the space that, the situation that the media was in that time was really troubling, you know, and to get yourself maybe a space in a national newspaper to write something, it was really problematic. You know, it had to fit particular frames, it had to fit certain agendas, which I felt then diluted the actual value that we can get from storytelling. So I sat down and said, what if we could create a platform that could empower young people with opportunities, with information, and also celebrate young people who are actually doing amazing things in our society, which is when then I started Tertiary Hub as a WhatsApp group, but over the years it has grown to extend its footprint over 5 social media platforms. We have launched a website at some point for our publications as well, and we are looking into getting into print in the near future. So yeah, I believe what we are standing for is giving young people an opportunity to have their voice heard, amplify their stories, and hopefully change the narrative that people have about young people, about our country, Eswatini, and about our region, Africa, because there's a narrative that is existing there that we can play a role, or rather that we have a role to play as storytellers to change into the right narrative.
You know, that has answered so many of my questions, but there's still so much to unpack in regards to your life and what you have to hold. We will be taking a short commercial break. When we return, we talk about the idea or the reality that you lived being a Mandela Washington Fellow 2025, representing the country of the tiny country of Eswatini. We'll talk about that journey when we come back from the break.
Buy one, get one free with PEP. Shop Johnson's Baby Wipes, save $39.99. Petroleum Jelly, save $59.99. Life's better with PEP.
Welcome to your number one show. It is Mind Over Matter.
Taking care of your body is very, very important.
Join our compassionate host and team of experts as they delve into crucial mental health issues and unlock your inner strength.
They come identifying, in a negative light.
Mind Over Matter, Fridays at 9 p.m. on Eswatini TV. Sibuko seMaswati.
Hello and welcome back. If you just tuned in, welcome to Young Climber. We have been unpacking the story of Chestermans Maphalala, who describes himself as a digital storytelling expert. We've spoken about what you aim to do, and I know that, from listening to you, I can tell that you aim to change the media landscape in the Kingdom of Eswatini. But we also need to talk about what I would say is the highlight of your life, of course, being a fellow. Can we just start with the application process for you? Maybe some people say, I applied 5 times and I didn't get in. For you, was it like one hit, one mic, one take, basically?
Thank you for the question. It was a one-time kind of attempt at getting, but I'll tell you how that happened.
Yeah.
At the University of Eswatini, I had the opportunity to work at a campus radio station as a presenter.
Yes.
And there I was working on a program which was being sponsored by the US Embassy. So that program aimed to sort of like educate Eswatini or our listeners about the opportunities that existed in the United States for Africans like ourselves, So there I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of the fellows who had the opportunity where I was able to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
Like, how do you apply? What are the things that they look for? I had tried applying initially, I think, on my second year, and when I looked at the questions, I just knew I had done nothing in terms of me standing a chance. So I went on to try and build up on a portfolio of some sort. So by the time I applied, I had a solid portfolio because I had about 3-4 years with Tertiary Hub. I have published so many stories. I have trained so many young people in terms of writing their own stories. And I'm talking about young people at universities. They are not really qualified to write, but they are now able to fully write new stories that resonate with particular audiences. So when I applied, I was surprised when I got a call that I've been shortlisted for an interview, because it's a really competitive process, but I was lucky to be selected. And I would say advice from previous fellows, attender before, is really what helped me with craft right my application and
that letter
get to the US.
And being there, what did it mean for you just as a person in media? When you got the news, what was it like? Did you feel like, maybe I shouldn't have done this?
I was like, am I really going? I didn't know what to think. And I think it came at a time when I was really having, I don't know whether to call it an identity crisis. I didn't know really who I was. I didn't know really what, yes, I've done all these things. I've come up with Tertiary Hub.
But what now?
Why? What's your purpose? Where are you going? That kind of thing. So going into that, I had the opportunity to engage with really, really brilliant individuals, who really pushed my limits. As individuals, we tend to then become comfortable in our own spaces. You're always seeing people saying, hey, you're doing well, you're doing well. And you eventually start believing that you're doing well. Yes, it could be good, but is it the best thing that you can offer right now, So I think going to the US, really my highlight would be that I've had the opportunity to engage with individuals. Labang challenging for me to a point who am I, and I really know what I stand for now.
And it's not only that, that experience, you were exposed to innovation, leadership, and of course, business strategy. What are some of the things that you learned during your time there, and how did that experience, sharpen the way that you think, the way that you see Eswatini media, and the way that you hope to improve just the space that you are in when you return?
Yeah, remember I said I was a leader before I knew I was a leader.
Yeah.
So my leadership journey has always been about discovery, learning, and everything. And one of the biggest things that I learned in this thing is something called strength-based leadership. So we're saying that we are focusing on your strengths instead of us looking at your weaknesses, trying to work on our weaknesses. We're not saying that ignore your weaknesses. I was saying that instead of you focusing on them, rather focus on your strengths, where you are doubling down on those strengths. Focusing on really and improving on what's really good to see can you get results from just focusing on that. So we had the opportunity to take a test. The way it's really it's a personal test that will help you to be understanding. These are the kinds of strengths that you have. This is how you can leverage those strengths to better your chances, or rather to up your chances of achieving a goals work, whether it's professional, whether it's family-wise, whether it's anywhere in life.
Yeah.
So I would say in terms of leadership in general, it has really changed how I look at individuals now.
Yeah.
My work really involves mentorship. A lot of young people, it's always easy to find yourself shouting at a young person, but you need for the which you're failing to understand that you wouldn't have written it because when I saw Ben and I experienced nine, So it's really about understanding that and trying to identify what particular strengths exist and how can I help this person become the best version of themselves, So it's really changed how I work with people. I'm now more empathetic.
Yeah.
Also joined Limco Queen recently as a lecturer, and the students at times would really push your limits. And the fact to us sometimes almost a similar age is not helping the case, but going into the US, I now really have improved in terms of how I handle my emotions, You don't want to find yourself shouting at a student. It's not really good. So it has really helped me becoming a better individual.
It seems that, it's done a lot for you personally, and also the way that you handle things. But, you also describe yourself as a digital storytelling expert. What does that mean for you in the context of modern African media?
Thank you for such a nice question, So earlier on I mentioned
Yes.
So storytelling is in our lives, especially as a Maswati. So that's us sitting with with our friends. But if we look at the environment, that no longer happens, unfortunately, because mostly but even if I think the structure, the family structure, institution as a whole has been challenged by these technological tools, in that we now spend lots of our time on the phone. You are there showing up to take your plate and go to your room. We no longer sit down and tell stories. So for me, digital storytelling is really about finding the stories that will connect with our people, but we are now looking at the platforms that these people are currently at. Where are we getting these people? They are on Facebook, they are on Instagram. So what are some of the techniques that we can use to try and connect with these people? Because also we need to understand that as someone on Facebook will not connect the same way as someone on LinkedIn or TikTok. So for me, becoming an expert in that particular field is really about understanding the platform, understanding the people that you're trying to talk to, and making sure that you are getting the stories that will not only connect with these people, but will eventually have impact, whether it's changing a person, it's challenging a person to become a better individual, to act better on one part of their life. That is what digital storytelling is about for me.
I hate to wrap up our conversation because, there's so much more that, I could ask in regards to the work that you've done. But unfortunately, in the interest of time, can I allow you to share your message to the dreamers, the storytellers, the young people in Eswatini who are hoping to follow, the same path that you have gone? Any few words for them?
I would say I would advise them bluntly that they shouldn't follow my path. Like they should just stay away from it as far away as possible. because it has so many challenges, you know. So they should stay away from that. But another thing that I could tell them is that your story matters. Your own unique story matters. You shouldn't try to live a life that Chester has lived. Try to come up with your own blueprint of a story that you want to make. I think one thing that I have discovered over the years is that you can literally become anything that you want. It doesn't matter whether you have the training, you have the certificate. It doesn't matter. If you want that particular thing, just map it out, write it down, look at it, believe in it, repeat whatever you are doing. You are okay. And don't try to be somebody else. Try to write your own story, because we won't be asked to see why didn't you become a Chester, why didn't you become a bird. They will just ask you straight, why didn't you become yourself? You had this purpose, but you decided to find other people's purposes. So let's try, good people, to make our own stories matter, make our stories stand out, and understand without our own stories, we can't really help the world. If we are going to change who we are, we're going to shrink it down. We only get to help the world if we rise up and become our actual selves.
Wow. I'm gobsmacked, right? But thank you so much, Chester, for joining us here on Young Climber. I'm certainly sure that someone heard those last words, even if they didn't hear the whole conversation. Those last words they definitely heard. But siyabonga kakhulu kuba nathi lana ka Young Climber.
No, thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor.
Babule Makhaya, that was the story of Chester Maphalala. Thank you once again for joining us here on Young Climber. We will be back again next week, Tuesday at 6:30, as we deliver another unique story. Everyone is telling their own story here, so you definitely guaranteed to learn something from each and every person. But unfortunately for today, we have to love you, we have to leave you. We will be seeing you next time. And from myself, Tabula Dlamini, and the rest of the team, it is good night and God bless.